I'm going to call to order the Energy, Utilities, and Telecommunications Committee of the House. And I think we have two bills, two pieces of legislation. We have Carlos, right?
They came out. Do y'all have a copy of the resolution? No. It did come out.
All right, we're going to go ahead and move on. We're going to take up Senate Bill 191, and as most of the committee members and everybody out there knows, it was just voted out of the Energy Subcommittee. And I'm going to ask Chairman Martin, whose subcommittee it came through, to give us a presentation. In fact, I'll ask you, since the author is not here, if you'll go ahead and present that. But I do want to. That's good. That's real good. But I do want to thank Chairman Martin and the members of his subcommittee. They've worked really hard, and they really have. They've put in a lot of work on this bill, and I appreciate that. And with that, Chairman Chuck Martin, if you'll give this a report and just go ahead and proceed with the bill. I will. You are bringing us a subcommittee substitute that's been amended in subcommittee. Is that correct?
Sure, I'll articulate
okay.
The amendment or the changes.
Okay.
Lost our learned attorney. When she gets back, I'll say this again, but I want to thank Shawn Marie Story for all the work she did with Mr. and Mr. Doss, our committee, and then Allie also on working on this. We were working through things since Monday. As Chairman knows, we met Monday. We met again as a work group. All the members of the subcommittee that came to the work group on Tuesday, and then worked with me late. I had to leave the session early yesterday due to allergies and the fact I thought I was going to expire on the floor of the House. And Shawn Marie was just, Miss Story was just great to work with. In fact, I think my phone beeped last night at 10:30 with her latest work. So I really appreciate her and the work she did. Ladies and gentlemen of the full committee, you have on your desk LC 3413S. That is a bill that comes to you with a due pass recommendation from the Energy Subcommittee, subject to the changes that I'm going to articulate. These were approved in a motion by the subcommittee, and it was passed out by substitute, a copy of which we do not yet have. But what we did on line 80, it currently reads on line, 79, pipeline or extension, or contains a residence that is located within 50 feet of the and we changed that in subcommittee to 150 feet. And we changed that also on other places in the document where that is reflected and articulated, including line 88, I believe. Line 88, see, there she is again, Miss Story, everybody. Line 79, 88, 200, and 210, where it reads 50 feet, that is 150 feet. So, Mr. Chairman, that I bring to you this bill with a due pass recommendation, LC 363413S, with the changes on those four lines from 50 to 150, and happy to answer questions from the committee if there are any on the bill.
All right. Do we have any questions from members of the committee to Chairman Martin? I don't see any.
Move to pass.
What? We have a motion. That was good. See, he's
Let's move it on.
vice chairman. That's what vice chairman. We have a second. Any? What's the word? Any
Discussion.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, at the risk of getting the ire of the chair, I did talk to our director at EPD and the folks from EPD were here at the subcommittee, and they asked me to articulate before the body at the full committee that this would allow them in the pipeline process to continue all of those things that they would normally do. But in addition to that, given the notification that was put in the bill, it would allow them to propagate rules and regulations relative to the overall view of a pipeline project for the construction thereof. And that would allow them to propagate rules and regulations toward the environmental impacts of the construction of a pipeline project as a whole. So they would need to relate that to the subcommittee and spread that over as legislative intent for the construction of the project.
All right, thank you. Representative Teasley, do you have?
Yes, sir. In the intervening time between subcommittee and full committee, I did have a conversation with EPD regarding the application fee that's referenced on line 132. In subcommittee, I had suggested I would, there's a tendency on my part to not want to specify a fee amount for fear that, well, that's what it's going to be. In conversations with EPD, they said their expectation is that the application fee would probably, they would normally charge about $5,000. So my recommendation, or they mentioned the number $5,000. So I would like to propose an amendment to line 132 where it says provisions for a non-refundable application fee not to exceed $5,000.
Okay, we have a. You recognize to make that motion.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd like to make that amendment.
Okay. Is there a? Yes.
Just wanted to bring to the committee's attention that there's also a similar provision regarding the marine terminals. Just sort of bring that to your
Okay. I would just suggest, you made your motion, I guess we'd have to have an amendment to your amendment, but,
Absolutely.
your proposed amendment, but we should have that reflected, I think, in the, section of the bill that refers to the marine terminals also.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm in full agreement.
Okay, so is there we just want to do it properly, okay, we have a second to amending his amendment, all in favor of the, yes,
And there's also one with regard to the certificate.
to the what?
Certificate.
Okay.
Can you point to the line there for us?
The line for the certificate is 362.
253 and 362.
No, yeah.
And so that's on. So I know lines 132, and then we have lines 362, and then where is the? Because I'm happy just to restate my amendment
Yeah,
if
that's
that's
what I'd like
appropriate.
you to do.
253. So then I would. My motion for an amendment is that we add on
You
lines
withdraw,
one.
you withdraw your previous,
Certainly, I'd be
proposal?
happy to withdraw
Okay.
my previous amendment.
And now you have a.
I'd like to make another.
You're
motion
making
for
a
an
motion
amendment,
for
if
another
it pleases the
amendment.
chair.
Okay.
On lines 132, and then was that line 153? 253. And then line 362 that we add the words not to exceed $5,000.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second? Second. Is there any discussion on this amendment?
Sure, if I can.
Okay.
I'll be brief.
And I respect the gentleman. I'm one of the strong conservative, and consumer-friendly voices in the House. I would just respectfully request we leave it to EPD to set these permits. We do it in all other places. I think we're careful when we put these in statute. And things need to change. We end up coming back changing the laws. I mean, they do a lot of fees now. If we want to do a fee bill for EPD, I think maybe we should do that all the same. I would prefer that we leave it to them, but I'll leave that to the members of the committee to vote their conscience.
Okay. Any further discussion on the proposed amendment? Seeing no further discussion, all in favor of the Teasley amendment indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no?
No.
Okay, the amendment carries. Any further discussion? Let's see. Representative Drenner, who has another bill on the calendar here. Yes. Oh,
I
well, she has a
maybe
question.
I did.
We're still
I
talking
don't
about
now, but maybe I don't now, but
Oh, no, we're not going to her bill
I
yet.
understand. Mr. Chairman. I've been here a long time, and I've been spanked a lot, so I get it. But I do want to just make my comments for those that weren't in the room that this particular bill has been greatly revised. We got it 5 minutes before we walked in the door. We are talking about a state process now, not a federal process of pipelines. There are some missing elements. In particular, the cultural assessment piece is not there. I did not see that anywhere. There has been at least, let me count the number of lines that have been deleted.
I don't want to interrupt, that the cultural assessment is on line 65.
Information obtained from cultural resource conducted along the proposed route of the petroleum. If you recall, in subcommittee, we had a woman from the
Okay, I understand. I got you.
Archaeological Society come in and talk about the her concerns or the society's concerns with regard to fully delineating exactly what that meant.
Okay. I apologize. You're right. I mean, you're right as far as your question. I apologize.
Right. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Of course, you're right, and I do have another bill on the calendar.
No,
Maybe so.
just messing with you on
I
that.
just I just want to say that I am uncomfortable moving the bill forward, having limited the amount of time to actually understand its full impacts. I know it just passed out of subcommittee, but I did want to make mention my concerns.
Okay, and I appreciate that. I would just say now, I think the changes in the substitute, the changes brought forward in the substitute from the subcommittee, I think they're all things that have been discussed in the subcommittee meetings and in the working meeting the other day. I mean, I don't think there's anything actually new that hadn't been discussed before. I don't think, and I think I've been to all of them. So, but I appreciate your comments. Chairman Dollar, did you have something? Yeah. What? No, where you at there? What's your?
Yeah, thank you. This is something that may have been brought up in subcommittee. I believe this is the first time that we are seeing the language involving this marine new petroleum marine terminal, line 162, and it's that it. I'll ask Leg Counsel if that's anywhere else in here, because I know that we just amended it to address the fee involving that. I just want to know. I'm just curious where that came from, and if we've talked to the Ports Authority, and kind of just would like a little background on that, if we have it from the chairman or from Chairman Martin.
I'll let Chairman Martin address that. I think we're just trying to make sure that you have some facilities that have the same possibilities for spills and things of that nature. We just want to make sure that they're addressed in the same way. But Chairman Martin can certainly address that.
Just if I may, in whole, try to go back and consume Dr. Jones' question as well, relative to the other changes to the bill. It was the intent to work on what I took away from the work session on Tuesday as the sense of the subcommittee in making the changes. That Chairman Dollar has identified the one substantive change from that, and that actually was facilitated by some testimony in the subcommittee hearing on Monday when we were talking about things that needed to be done relative to a holistic approach. I think one of the gentlemen said, I asked him the specific question of, okay, for other projects of this magnitude, in the area, of petroleum, you think they should apply? He seemed to think they would and could, and so I'd respectfully offer to Chairman Dollar and the committee that, again, just as Chapter 17 addresses for a petroleum pipeline notification prior to that expansion being done, I think the people, if there's an expansion being done on a marine petroleum terminal, that folks nearby need to be notified, and that the the holistic part of the project be done. Again, we're not requiring any more EPD work that would be done if water permits are necessary or air permits are necessary. All those things to construct had to be done anyway. All we're doing by adding Chapter 18 is making sure that the same notification is being handled for that particular type of project as would be for the petroleum supply coming through a pipeline as coming through a terminal. That is new, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Martin, and thank you, Chairman Dollar, for the question. Any further discussion? Looks like we do have, no. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of House Bill 191, and what is the LC number?
Senate Bill 191.
Excuse me, Senate Bill 191, LC 363413S, as amended, indicate by raising your hand, please. You got it?
Yes, sir.
Any opposed, raise your hand. Okay, the motion carries and is eligible for rules. I will carry that bill. I'll be the House sponsor or somebody that I designate as the House sponsor. And with that, I think we have one more proposition here. Representative Drenner, you have a resolution, I think. Oh, yeah, yeah. And if I may, Representative Drenner, get a report from the subcommittee.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I'd like to report your Energy Subcommittee this past Monday brings to you full committee LC 363399S, a substitute, comes to you with a do pass recommendation. Representative Drenner has worked with the parties and has a good proposition. We recommend it with a do pass recommendation.
Thank you, Chairman. Representative Drenner, if you will proceed with explaining this, you've got House Resolution 560 LC 363399S. Is that correct?
Correct.
If you will explain this to us, and we'll consider it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Originally, the study committee was broader, and it was about preferred payment method. And there were some concerns expressed by members in the audience, and I talked to several committee members. The intent that I am trying to address is many of my constituents have fallen into one of two categories, and I live in DeKalb County. I've had business owners that have gotten utility bills, water bills, like $22,000 from one month to the next month. And I've had seniors who have gotten their checks a couple of days late and paid their water bill and then had to pay a late fee. So the intent behind the study committee is to specifically focus on the utility issue within DeKalb County. I've tried to do this at the local level through my delegation as the chair of the environmental committee. I have reams of meetings that I have had with the sewer and water people in DeKalb and have not been able to adequately resolve it. I've had sewers that were once public become private overnight in blueprints. So that's really my intent. I'm not looking at any other utility issue other than DeKalb County water. And I thought that perhaps this resolution would give me some oomph behind some measures to encourage the county to step up their game with regard to utility bills. So that's really the genesis of the study committee.
Thank you for your presentation. Any questions from members of the committee? Chairman Dollar. Okay, you're recognized. Have a motion and a second. Do we have a second? Second. All in favor, indicate by saying aye. Any opposed, say no. This, so the committee substitute to House Resolution 560 LC 363399S has been approved. And
Thank you, Mr.
thank you for
Chairman.
bringing, appreciate that. This should be the last meeting of this committee, this session. I know it's hard to believe, and I know you want to keep on going, but I'm pretty sure this just might be it. Thank you all. It's a great committee, great participation, a lot of great questions and comments. I really appreciate every one of you. And
Great chairman.
with that, unless there is, yes, yes, ma'am.
I want to say thanks to you.
Well, I'm going to turn your microphone on for this.
Thanks to the mayor right here. They did a great job, sir. Your mayor experience is kind of handy.
I'll write her a check every
I like that.
Even during session?
Thank you.
All right. With that, this committee meeting is adjourned.